Holy crap, episode 7 of Summertime Rendering was phenomenal. Just a super good episode. Great action, great twists in it. This whole fight scene, the chase scene. Add into that just so much insight into the shadows, what they already know about the shadows, and pretty much their plans going forward. And yes, a lot of insight into now best waifu of the season and probably the year, Hizuru. But I have so much to get through and a lot of theories that I'm already building up, so let's jump right into it. So yeah, opening up this episode, we have Shinpei, Hizuru, and Nezu are all talking about the situation. He reveals all of his notes to them. We get a few insights into how shadows work in this little meeting. And one such one is that apparently once you kill a shadow copy of yourself, you no longer have to worry about you being shadow copied again, because apparently you gain like an immunity to it. So when they're talking about Alan being in danger because he might get, copied as well, Hizuru's like, nope, don't worry about that. I took care of that one. He's in the clear. And this brings up the question of what's the situation with the three there? Nezu claims that he's already killed his shadow, so he doesn't have to worry about it. Obviously, Shinpei has been, possibly will be, copied. Obviously, that's already a concern for Hizuru, as when he asks Hizuru, well, have you killed your copy? She's like, no, I can't tell you that. It seems like Hizuru, knowing that Shinpei could be copied and will reveal her secrets to the shadows, she cannot allow him know. She can easily tell Nezu because Nezu cannot be copied again, but Shinpei is a threat to her secret. She claims that they cannot know her secret, but obviously noting the fact that she is in danger for coming back here. They have already killed her family, and she's coming back to basically get revenge. And so she is threatened. The moment they know that she's there, they will come after her. So it brings up the question, like, what are you doing here? Your life's in danger and all this kind of stuff. And additionally, why can't we know what this whole secret is behind you? Which we do get over the period of this episode, a lot of insights into Hizuru. And again, getting into my theories on what's going on with Hizuru. It was so funny because the entire time I thought that whenever they were talking about Ryunosuke, I thought it was a female, because again, we had this whole point where she's transferring control over to her brother, Ryunosuke, and he's calling her sister. So that was the whole reason why I always thought that Ryunosuke was a sister. And that technically that sister was back here and dead. So, but yeah, in this episode, we find out that Ryunosuke Nagumo is a split personality of Minakata Hizuru. Now, here's where I get into my theories. So she's not wanting to tell Shinpei what happened in the past, what her secret is, because she doesn't want the shadows to know her secret, because it'll probably put her in danger of them knowing how to probably kill her. And that's where I get my theory. Why wouldn't she want them to know her secret? Again, probably because she, as her current form, cannot be killed, and she has abilities that they can't sort of fight against, or at least Ryunosuke's side of things has the power to fight them. Well, why is that? That's where I get my theories. So Nezu reveals to Shinpei, yeah, she doesn't really have split personality, even though that's what Shinpei believes. That's not really the case. She doesn't have split personalities. It doesn't like she switches over to Ryunosuke or something like that. Why would Nezu say that specifically? Because at face value, it seems like a split personality situation. She has two personas within herself, one being Ryunosuke and one being her. He reveals that 14 years ago, she found Ryunosuke's body in the mountains, and she screamed and he came to her side, and they found his body and he was covered in bites, like animals had just chewed him up. It was all to cover up this mark on his neck, which was obviously the reason why he died. And they immediately, just like Ushio, they immediately cremated his body and buried him. So they were covering things up just like with Ushio. So we're already revealing at this point that something within the governance of this island is covering up what the shadows are doing. So that puts a big target on certain groups like Karakiri and Hishigata, which I'm already kind of pointing as possibly being something going on with the shadows. Again, I don't think Hishigata is a bad person, but we might still go in that territory. But my theory goes into, again, Hishigata and Ushio. I've already have this theory going where I believe that Ushio, the current one that's on the island right now that just ran into Shinpei at the very end of the episode, I believe she's some sort of abnormality in the shadows. We know that she's a shadow. The shadows believe that she's a shadow. But my thought process was going to a theory that maybe her shadow's been disconnected from her actual flesh, because whenever a shadow copies something, it attaches itself to a fleshly being, but the shadow's down here on the ground. But what happens if you remove that shadow? Does that form stay in place? And can it have its own persona, not wanting to be a shadow? Not having the shadow's mind seeping in. Because as we see, especially beginning again in this episode, we've seen Shiori, after her parents were taken out, she was crying. What did you do to my parents? And even after that, she's talking about how she wants to leave this island, leave this world with her family. She wanted to take her parents with her. These fake copied shadow versions of her parents. So they have their minds of themselves in there. And she was pleading to Shinpei to get him to understand. Because again, she's technically a perfect copy, but she has a shadow with her. So what happens if you break that shadow from that perfect copy? You just have a perfect copy. And I believe that's what Ushio is going to be. And I believe that that's somehow connected to what's going on with Hizuru. Now, this is what makes this difficult for me in connecting them like side-by-side parallels ideas here, is that I believe with Hizuru, she may have gotten his shadow, maybe? I kind of wanted to see if possibly what's going to happen is you'll have, yes, Hizuru is the self that is being taken over by either, Minakata or by Ryunosuke, but how does he stay with her? I think that might be that he is a shadow that is kind of taking over her body, and she's kind of going to the shadow. And I think that's the secret that she doesn't want them to know. How is she able to tell when they come to attack? Why does she have this ability to foresee their attacks? We already seen it with Mio when she was fighting her. She was able to foresee that. When the shadow at the festival shot at her, she could foresee it. Because I think she's connected. The shadows are all interconnected. We've seen it in this episode with Shiori talking to the mother. Let her in. They're interconnected in their minds, like a hive mind. And I believe that that's why she's able to see, or at least Ryunosuke is able to see when they attack, is because Ryunosuke is a shadow self. So he's able to see when they attack. And so he's able to foresee that and move his body to dodge it. And again, Hizuru and Ryunosuke does not want them to know that. So that's a theory that I'm going with that. And that would explain why she knows so much about the shadows. She knows they don't want to be stepped on. She knows all these things about the shadows that nobody else should know, because she's connected to them through Ryunosuke. So that aside, yes, we have the really awesome, pretty much the takedown scene of the Kobayakawas, which when she first arrived there, she's like, all right, Ryunosuke, you're up. And it was just cool because we finally got an answer of why she keeps recording things. Is because she has to play it back to her brother when he takes over, so he knows what's going on. At first, I thought it was going to be that there was two of them, because the way they cut the scenes, suddenly there's a Hizuru standing in front of the building, and she's listening on her phone. I'm like, wait, is she listening on a phone call to them? Because we just seen them over here. But no, it was her playing out a recording, which was interesting. But yeah, their goal right now was to take down the Kobayakawas, so she goes in there and pretty much decimates them. Again, I really like this scene because it continues to show that these are perfect copies, and the shadows themselves can't even control their emotions. So yes, when the father sees the mother get wiped out by the hammer, he gets so angry and rushes in there. And then yes, when Shiori walks up, she's crying her eyes out because she has seen her parents die. But this is something that Hizuru even hits at in this episode, similar I think she hit before, is that she wants to make sure that Shinpei knows, don't listen to them for too long. You will be deceived. They are technically copies. And this is something, obviously, that he's going to have a problem with, yes, with Shadow Mio, but also additionally is going to be eventually, with Ushio. They are technically perfect copies. And yes, the shadow takes over now and then, but that's the threat that they really do have. But yeah, the oddity here is that with this Shiori one, it's different. She hits it and it's able to rip itself off of the hammer. She stabs it, it still lives. So this is definitely a different case for them. So much that she wants to capture it. So they enact Plan B, which apparently if you pierce them 3 times, they cannot move. They're like stuck in place, which that's kind of an odd thing that apparently Nezu knows about. And they're supposed to question this Shiori about like, why is it different and all this stuff, but all we get is just basically Shinpei wondering why it killed Ushio. And yes, it does confirm that it killed Ushio, unless Shadows kind of like the idea of deceiving and it decided to tell Shinpei just to lie to him. And then it follows up with, when Shinpei asks why you're doing this, it's like, we're just gonna leave. It's summer's coming up. We're all leaving. I'm taking my family leaving. And as it's trying to deceive Shinpei, saying, become part of my family. Let me flash you, and then you could become part of the family. You'll be my big brother and all that kind of stuff. And that's when they kind of finish it off because, again, Hizuru is afraid of it deceiving him. Ryunosuke is afraid of... This is going to be difficult. Ryunosuke is afraid of Shinpei being deceived by it. Following this, we get a little cute scene between Ryunosuke... Hizuru and Shinpei and Nezu, when it seemed like Ryunosuke was going to reveal some stuff about Hizuru's insecurity or something like that. She decides to punch herself and return herself back to normal. And yes, hitting on that idea again of not letting yourself be deceived by the shadows. And yes, questioning, are you going to be able to kill Mio? Mio is the next target. Mio is the other one they know right now for sure has a shadow copy. And yes, she's questioning, are you going to be able to do that? And when they return home, yes, they do a fake out. Stupid. I thought like, yeah, he's been messing around all night. And so Mio, the shadow Mio, him not being there, went in there and took her out. And no, it was a fake out. That was cheap. That was extremely cheap. I honestly really didn't like that fake out. Because I'm curious at this point when the reset's going to be. I think this is probably going to be a pretty long reset because it feels like the writer just wants to flesh out things rather than constantly reset things and have to reestablish things over and over again, which I do appreciate. But yeah, him kind of seeming down and disappearing for a while, she felt like she wanted to help him by cooking something, which is something she doesn't normally do. So he checks her shadow, and sure enough, she's fine. But yes, Ushio shows up right at the very end. So everything's changed significantly. This is a very changed route. Obviously, having him team up with Hizuru and Nezu, but additionally, just things outside of what they're doing is changing rapidly. So anything that he can plan on right now is not going to work out. Overall, though, fantastic episode. Just love the animation, love the action, and yes, just so much cool kind of reveals and mysteries created around a lot of these characters. Like I said, a lot of it, Hizuru and Ryunosuke's whole thing is really, really fascinating, and I'm really curious to see how that turns out. Again, obviously, she's keeping us a secret on purpose, and I believe that's because she's connected to the shadows in some way. And I think that's through Ryunosuke. So that'll be interesting to see how that turns out. Also, fantastic performance by Shiori. Ria Kojima. We don't get enough Ria Kojima anymore, so hearing her as Shiori was absolutely phenomenal. And I noticed it before this episode, but we really didn't get too many scenes of her talking too much. And just getting that little bit of her twinge in there was definitely phenomenal. Again, hinting at this whole island and the people that are in charge of it, being able to force all these cremation very quickly does put a lot of question marks on certain characters like Katakuri, which at this point I'm pretty suspect about, honestly. But I'll be very interested to see where it goes from here because, like I said, we technically, right now, the only person that we are sure about that is a shadow is going to be Mio. And technically Ushio as well, but I'm really curious if we will have a conundrum being created around the fact that Ushio, being a shadow, is still a conundrum for Shinpei. And when it comes to, what happens if Nezu and Hizuru bust in the house? Is he going to allow them to kill Ushio? She's technically an asset to them, but there's nothing to say that she's not just deceiving them, outside of the fact that all the shadows call her a traitor. But anyways, that's my thoughts on episode 7 of Summertime Rendering. Definitely loving the hell out of this show so much. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, make sure to hit that like button, share this video to your friends. Definitely appreciate all the support. Hit a comment down there and let me know what you thought of the episode. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you get all my content. I do weekly impressions on this show as well as news, impressions, reviews. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, I would greatly appreciate it if you consider supporting us on Patreon or through our tips link in the description below. We definitely appreciate everybody that supports us, and y'all take care.